right, we've got 23 attendees, so I think we could probably start there.
I had to unmute. My kids are being loud in the background. Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Barber with Kaysville City Council. Thank you all for coming tonight to our town hall webinar. I'm going to introduce everybody, or let them introduce themselves, and we'll kind of go over our agenda for this evening. So, Councilmember Lortz, do you want to go next? Introduce yourself.
Sure. Andre Lortz. I'm in Kaysville City Council and part of the fiber project.
David.
Yeah, I'm David Brown. I'm one of the owners of Connect Internet, and we're over the operations and maintenance and the drop installation.
Kara.
Hi, I'm Kara Mullally, and I'm with Corning in the market development organization, helping pull this project together.
I think Greg's next on there.
Hi, my name is Greg Lentz. I'm a teammate of Kara's. I work at Corning Optical, and we've been working hard to pull this together, as Kara said. Looking forward to your questions this evening.
Excellent. And I think our last one is Chad there.
Yeah, I'm Chad Smith. I live in Fruit Heights. I'm the manager for ComData Broadband for Gray Bar. We have a location in Salt Lake City and one in Orem.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. I know it's kind of an interesting time right now where we are all getting really used to meeting virtually in this crazy world that we live in. So thank you for joining with us. We've held several of these town halls, webinars for the new Kaysville Fiber project, and we're just really appreciative of everybody in the city who's taking the time to come be informed on this project. And all of the ones that we've held before in 2020 are available on our website. It's newkaysvillefiber.com. And the reason we have the new is because we are presenting a new plan than we had last year in 2019. And I know I say it a lot, but I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been involved to help us cater this project to meet the needs of Kaysville residents. So after introductions, we had why Kaysville Fiber? Why are we doing this project? We've been working on this for 2+ years as a way to bring infrastructure to our city to provide fiber optic internet available to all businesses and residents and households that want it. And we'll talk a little bit more as we get further along, but internet has become a very essential part of our lives. And we look forward to making sure everyone in our city has availability to really the very best technology at a very affordable rate. And so this project has 3 main principles, and I know I skipped to those a little bit before. I'm gonna go over these really fast. Hopefully everyone that's called in tonight has already seen these, talked about, and really driven home the 3 things that we heard last year. That we want. I get to vote, I only pay if I want to, if I want it, and I know what it'll cost. So we're going to talk about those 3 key principles really quick, just in case anybody hasn't really been familiar. And then the really exciting thing that makes this webinar and town hall unique is that we have our vendors that just introduced themselves that are going to be contracted pending the approval of the public vote in November. And they're going to talk about the process. We've heard from a lot of people, they just want to know exactly what this is going to look like in their home, in their yard, in their city, and the support for it. So I'm really excited to let them take that away. So first one we're going to talk about, Councilmember Lortz, do you want to give an update on the vote?
Sure. So basically this next Thursday on August 6th, the City Council has action items which include referring the project to the ballot, approving the parameters for the revenue bond, and setting the initial residential rates for the project. So that will then start all the processes for it to be put formally onto the ballot in November. We'll submit it to the Lieutenant Governor's office and to the county to get it on the ballot. Then we will have a public hearing in September and a public meeting in October, prior to the actual vote, which ballots will come out in probably late October, and you'll have 2 to 3 weeks to be able to submit your ballots.
And then one update on that, one of the things we heard from a lot of people, in addition to wanting to be able to vote on the entire project, including the financing, is that they wanted to have an idea of exactly what it was going to be on the ballot. So if you go to that new kaysvillefiber.com, we actually have a page on there that has the exact ballot language that the city council will be voting on this coming Thursday. That way it's no surprises, everybody should know and have enough time to get informed between now and the vote. Second one, subscriber model, I only pay if I want. This is something else we heard really strongly from residents, that if I want it in my home, I will pay for it, and those who don't, won't. And so you'll see in the cost breakdown on the website, it's for those who are subscribing. If you do not want it, no action needs to be taken. Those who want to subscribe. There's also a page on the website about who pays for the project, because this is funded by a revenue bond that is backed by sales and franchise tax in the city. And so we have done a lot of protective measures, and we'll talk about those to make sure this project is very self-sustaining, but we also are being very transparent about the backing of the city in this project. And especially we'll talk about a lot of other municipal fiber projects and what we've learned from the successes, and also from those have not been successful. And then cost update, Councilmember Lort's trying to update on this really quick.
So we did a request for proposal earlier this year, and as you've heard, we have our winning vendors joining us tonight. We are currently working through all the planning process and negotiating the final contracts for the project. But we got a bid that essentially was about a little over $20 million to install fiber throughout the city and connect about 4,500 homes to the fiber network. So we know now really what it's going to cost for us to do this, so we can set rates and let people know initially, here's exactly what it's going to cost.
And to that, I will say a lot of people, there may be a lot of question why we're doing this now, why we have vendors, why we've had these contracts before the vote. And it's because of that big question. I want to know what it'll cost. Residents want to know the entire build out cost, which Councilmember Lortz just talked about, and then also what it's going to cost me at home. And so in the request that the city put out, we were very upfront about, we need you to put in your proposals and work with us, and know that it is all contingent on November 2020 vote. So thank you to vendors for being willing to be part of this process. And then I actually added in one more key principle. I know I said that there were 3 key principles of the project, but I actually added in one more because we've heard a lot about this, about who Kaysville Fiber will be available to. And it's actually one of the really strong drivers of doing this project, is that it will be available to everyone, to every household with a utility account and every business with a utility account that wants it in the city. And I'm realizing we have a lot of people who are currently underserved for lots of different reasons, but we've had many say, well, I haven't been able to get any of the other big providers in my home, or the one provider that I choose right now, because I'm kind of isolated or in a difficult area. So I assume Kaysville Fiber won't be available to me. And that is one thing we wanted to share. That's the main motivation, is to make sure this resource in our city is available to everyone. And so when you're talking to people, when you're kind of hearing about the process, that's a really key piece that we're excited to offer. And then Councilmember Lortz, do you want to talk about the wait list that we have available?
Sure. So we just launched a new website that is basically for people that are interested, can express that interest just like they did in the survey last year, but it's online. So if you go to newkaysvillefiber.com, there's a button that says wait list, which will take you to our wait list. There's a small few questions that it asks you about what you're interested in and how your current service works. And if you fill that out, then it basically lets us know which neighborhoods have the most interest. And essentially that will help us, as if the vote passes, to prioritize where we get fiber first. So we try to go to where we have the most interest, so obviously the project can be the most successful.
And it's a good way to have a conversation about getting really informed about the project before the vote as well. So people can go to the website, they can find out about it, they can ask neighbors questions. That's one of the reasons, and I think our next timeline update that I wanted to give was the timeline that's also available on newkaysvillefiber.com. You can go and see an entire timeline of 2020. And one of the best things I think we did at the beginning of the year, and a huge thank you to Councilmember Lortz, is we laid out the entire process of what it would take to customize this project to meet the needs, the ones that we had heard earlier, and to put it on the ballot, which is a huge endeavor, we realized, especially a unique circumstance like we have. And also enough time built in there for people to get informed, ask questions, us to hear from residents what's important, what needs to be heard from. We've had a citizens panel that's awesome. You can read about it on the website as well. Citizens who applied were able to come in and consult and work on the project with us at the beginning of the year, which feels like a lifetime ago because that was pre-pandemic when we were forming this and we put out the timeline. And it's been really helpful to know exactly what was happening, not feel rushed. That's another thing we heard from a lot of people. We don't want to be surprised. We want to have enough time to learn and understand. And so that's why we're out. That's why we're here. All of the dates are there on that timeline. You can also go back and kind of see the process that we followed to get to this point. And so when we talk about availability and timing, that's probably your best resource.
I was going to say, we are also working with the vendors to put together a 2021 timeline that essentially says if it passes the vote, here's what to expect next year. So a lot of people have been asking, well, when will I actually be able to get service if we pass this? And so we'll be answering that question here in the coming weeks and post that on the website.
And that's actually a really great lead in to where we're going to hand over some time to our vendors. Is a lot of the questions that we've had is who's going to be performing this project? Is it somebody with experience? Is it the city? Who's going to be doing what? And we want to be really clear about that. And I also want to highlight the really great team that we have behind the project. And so people can get to know them and feel a little bit more comfortable when they're making their decision and casting their vote about how this process will go. And so with that, I think we will hand the time over. I think Kara is going to be our first one. And you can introduce yourself a little bit more. I know you did before, and then we'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I'm Kara Mullally. I've been with Corning now 22 some odd years. And in that entire time in different roles supporting carrier network programs and projects with either telcos, large and small in the US as well as abroad. And I think one of the things that we want to make sure, the residents of Kaysville understand is that we know that a construction project of this magnitude is disruptive. And we promise you that it's worth it. The folks in the neighborhoods, the communities, the cities, the small towns that we've helped support with fiber broadband in total, by and large, see economic growth, see new job creation, and really just have that much more connectivity, not only physically to the internet, but to the global conversations that are going on by virtue of being connected with the latest and greatest technologies. So there's a few slides coming up. I'm actually going to ask Greg to speak to them. He's previously been in our engineering services organization and knows a whole lot more about moving earth and all the manner and process of how that goes down. So Greg.
Thanks, Kara. When we start this construction, it will be in probably March or April next year, assuming that your vote allows us to do so. You will see a lot of phased construction that happens across the city, and as Councilmember Lortz alluded to, we are going to do that in conjunction with the priority lists that the city is giving us. And so, as just kind of a highlight of what you could expect to see, right? This is an area here where you have the sidewalk on the left, and the right of way area where the city's allowed to dig in and put utilities. And this would be called an open trench, right? Where we open up the ground to put fiber cable into the ground. Then we patch it all back up, clean up the sidewalk, and then continue to move along. This would be one of the messier ways. We try to do this as least as possible, but sometimes around more critical utilities, right? Gas lines or power lines, you got to be very careful around those. Next slide, please. This here is fiber coming off a reel of this trailer, and that's probably going into a trench or into the ground somewhere, or potentially here in the background you see the telephone poles. This fiber might be going up onto the telephone poles, but this might be some of the equipment or the actual fiber cable that you'd see as it's being deployed. It comes on these nice reels, fairly large, and then it gets spooled off and placed all around the city. Next slide, please. Here's kind of two different views. So on the left, the one thing that you'll notice is that with the cones and the trucks, right, this would be a traffic control permitting section where the gentleman there working in these Connect trucks, right? So this is David's company, and they're placing the fiber here on the telephone poles and making sure it's up there and secure and ready to go. But you might see these traffic control, and as Kara alluded to, there could be some traffic interruptions, although it's for the safety of both you and for the workers that are out there. You might see some of these cones. And then on the right, what you'll see is you see the pea gravel that this gentleman here is standing on. And then you see the ducts that are coming up, right? The duct would be the underground pathway. And then there's these micro ducts, the blue and the orange. And what this does is we'll put in duct and we'll put in fiber, right? That's the black cable. But then we will also have room for the city. So after Corning is there and does construction, and sometime end of next year or early in 2022, when our part is done and we've turned over the network to David and everyone's starting to get service, there's future growth room here in these ducts. And so that's the purpose of those smaller ducts, is to have some future pathway in case there's need to grow further or add some new functionality in the city where you might need more pathway. And is there one more slide, Michelle? Yes, okay. So here you can see that they are placing fiber into this is called a hand hole. This is where the ducts are captured, right? So they'll travel from hand hole to hand hole. You largely don't see it when we're done. This hand hole, it holds where the ducts come up, and then it allows the fiber to come up so that it can be accessed and taken into the different businesses or residences that are nearby. So you'll see a combination of these larger types of hand holes and then some of the smaller ones. And are we going for, Michelle, a video? Is that where you're going for? Oh, no, okay.
No. If we have time, I'll show that later, but for now, that was it. I'm getting
okay.
it.
Okay. Yes, okay, so David and his group at Connect is going to be...
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yep, absolutely.
One thing I failed to say at the very beginning is for everybody that's calling in through Zoom, you'll see there is a question and answer ability there at the very bottom. So if you have questions, you can type them in as we're going through. And I apologize, I usually remind everybody that at the very beginning. So if you're seeing something and we haven't quite covered it yet, feel free to open up that Q&A port chat window that you see and ask your questions there. So, sorry about that, Greg.
Yep, no worries. And so in the overall process, right, the Corning folks will be most involved on the front end, right, for planning, design, and then the constructing of the distribution network. And then we're going to hand that over to David, and he's going to do the operation of that network and then the connecting of the customers. And so I think now is David's time to walk through some of that.
Yeah, so we're, just to give you a little bit more background, you saw that picture with a Connect's truck and a bucket truck doing some aerial work. And so that was actually us working on the Kaysville City fiber ring that's already in place. So we're very familiar with Kaysville City, have a lot of friends here. I don't live that far away, so we're a local company. And I kind of want to stress how important we felt that was to be able to really support Kaysville City locally. So our role with operations and maintenance is we kind of have to be the jack of all trades. So from our history, we started as an ISP, and we started about 20 years ago. But even when we started, we knew that fiber was really the trend where everything needed to go. So we kind of worked our way up as a wireless internet service provider. And then as we were able to, work more into the construction side of things and fiber optics. And so we have the ability to do the backhaul fiber, the conduit placement, the drop cables, running things into homes. We know everything, but it's a lot easier if it's partitioned out to a group like Corning, a group like Gray Bar, and we're able to focus on the residents, on making sure you're happy, making sure that plant that's already built is functioning correctly, and that you have someone that you can call 24/7 if something's wrong. And so it will be split a little bit between us and the ISPs for customer support. But we just want you to know that we're available for anything that you want to call us for, and we'll get that information to the right parties, and we'll be able to do a lot of service checks for you and things like that without you having to worry about who you're going to call.
Michelle, if I can just interrupt for a second, we had one question on the chat asking about where will the handholds be located, particularly in residential areas?
That's a great question. So all of our underground work is going to happen in the city's what they call rights of way, right? And it's where typically the utilities would be located today. So if you think about where your power or your existing telephone lines might be, that's where our equipment will go in, our cable or our handholds. And so sometimes those are along next to the sidewalks. Sometimes it's between the sidewalk and the roadway. Sometimes it's just on the inside of the sidewalk. Occasionally they're in the roadways, but largely it's next to where the sidewalk would be. And if there's no sidewalk, it's typically right next to where the roadway would be. I hope that answers the question. One thing to point out is that with as many homes and businesses that are in the city and the diversity of the types of roadways, you know, from the more downtown area to some of the more planned neighborhood types areas, there could be a number of different places where those handholds go, depending on, you know, where the house might be.
So Greg, would it be accurate to say if they look to where they currently see their telecommunication, cable boxes, electrical boxes that are by the street in the front of their yards, that's where the handholds would go in that same type of area, but ours will all be below ground with a flat cover, like a sprinkler case or sprinkler cover, rather than above ground like many of the others.
Yes, absolutely. That's a fair statement. And one other point is in the picture, that was a rather large handhole where it could be a consolidation point for many cables coming in and out in the different directions. The ones that would typically be located closest to the home would be much smaller, 17 by 30 inches maybe, or even smaller than that if we can make them smaller. The last thing we want to do is to take up a bunch of grass area with handholds. But yes, all below grade and all covered nicely.
Excellent. Another question came in asking about an existing neighborhood east of Highway 89 and Crestwood Road, as well as a new neighborhood that will put a potentially 70, 80 houses, the Talbot Orchard. Is that area in consideration for this effort? The answer, as Michelle said earlier, is yes. Every home in Kaysville that is served by Kaysville Utilities will be included in this project. And in fact, we've already worked with UDOT and they have given us conduit underneath the Highway 89 project that they're constructing up there so that we can run the fiber underneath the freeway to connect that neighborhood east of Highway 89. So yes, they will have access.
And to say that, that's actually an excellent question. A lot of those residents east of 89 are the ones that have contacted questioning if this would be available to them, probably in a big part because of being underserved in this utility. or this service previously. So we're really excited about that. And also, when you talk about new homes, we're actually making sure that when we have new homes come in, they actually just put that conduit as part of the construction process. So we don't have to go tear up another road that was just barely put in. So it's as efficient as possible. Anything else on that, Councilmember Lortz, about?
Well, I mean, just say that we did pass that as part of the new specs for construction of new neighborhoods or new homes to include conduit for fiber connectivity. They previously had it for telecommunication, for TV, and we just added fiber to that requirement. So all new homes going forward now will have conduit, and every new development neighborhood will have conduit in it. So it'll be very easy for us to extend this network into those new developments as they're built.
Exactly. And if I can, I wanted to back up just a little bit. When David was talking about the operations and the support of the network and the ISPs. And sometimes I forget, and I appreciate when people remind me that not everyone is familiar with all of these terms that we throw around. So if there's something that you don't understand, please put it in the chat or contact us. But the way that we're designing this project is that Kaysville City will own the infrastructure, the actual fiber network, kind of like the roadway that internet travels on. And then it'll be operated by these vendors that we've seen today. But then the really key piece that I'm most excited about how this will work out is that it will be an open network. And what that means is qualified internet service providers will all be able to offer service on the network to people in their homes. And what that is exciting to me about is because that introduces a lot of different choices that you can go choose from several different companies, find one that meets your needs for customer service and all sorts of other things, but it also introduces competition. And that is what will really help a lot of us say, make sure that we're getting the best value for our money, is because there is that choice in the competition made possible by this infrastructure. And so I know I say this a lot, but when we talk about investments of the city, infrastructure investments particularly are those that affect us directly. And so the city having this infrastructure available to those who want it, I think is a great investment of using money that we're already spending. Nearly all of us already spend money paying for internet service to our home. We're able to put that money towards a much better technology and really great choice and competition for superior service.
So Michelle, we had a question following up on that, asking about they currently are in Layton using Utopia and X-Mission. How is this different or similar?
Okay.
So yes, it's very similar to Utopia. And really the only reason that we didn't use Utopia to do this project was, one, they declined when we said we wanted to own the network, but we also felt that being able to have the city own the infrastructure allowed us to ensure that the services are directed to what Kaysville needs or what Kaysville wants. So we're not subject to 13 other cities saying yes or no, we want or don't want certain things to happen. Kaysville can kind of direct its own future and destiny with what services we feel are important to provide through the network. There's another
as well. The cost for owning the network ourselves. The motivation is to make sure Kaysville residents have the best value possible. And so Councilmember Lortz, right now might be a good time to talk about the cost and how we're going to make sure the bond gets paid off and money stays in pockets of residents.
So a couple of things that we've done. So with the bond, we are essentially, since we know we have about 2 years for this network and home connections to occur, we're having so that the bond has no payments required for the first 2 years, so that we can make sure that we develop and generate customers, subscribers on the network who will then pay for the bond. But that gives us time so that we don't have to make any payments for the first 2 years. The other thing with the cost of this is that we've been able to look, and right now the marketplace is really good. And just last week, Utopia went to market for Clearfield City. And so we have a really good indication of what a fiber bond for Kaysville would price at. And I'm very happy to say, and we'll talk about it next week, but right now it looks like we would only have a bond for about $20.5 million, which is substantially lower than last year's estimated $26 million. So the project has come down by almost 25–30% from what the estimates were last year, which I think is a tribute to the RFP process and all the due diligence that we've gone through in the last year. The other thing is the interest rates right now are under 3%, but you'll see that the parameters allow for the interest rate to be higher than that because we don't know where rates will go. But right now, if it priced out, it would be about 2.75%. So a really good rate. So that makes our break even lower than what we've thought before. Because before we've been saying that self-sustaining mode would we need about 4,200 subscribers. With the lower rates and the lower cost of the project, we're now thinking that it's only going to be about 3,500 to 3,700 subscribers for the project to be self-sustaining. And if we get any subscribers above that level, it just pays the bond off faster.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's our motivation in owning the network. Well, there's multiple motivations, but that is our key one, is to keep the best value for our residents. That's why we're going through this process. You've probably all seen how much time and work has gone into it, and we're happy to do it, I guess, speaking for Andre and I, because we know it'll pay off. And there's so many benefits as well to the city having access to this. And I know you hear a lot about smart cities, and it really is the way of the future. It really is exciting to think of how everything in our homes are becoming connected. It only makes sense that everything in our city should also be connected. And fiber just makes that very possible.
Yeah, and I think the exciting thing is you talk about smart cities. Some other cities that own their own electric utility and have put in a fiber network have seen millions of dollars of savings on their electrical grid because they've been able to manage it much more accurately instead of guessing and approximating how it's working. They can be much more proactive with equipment replacement and upgrades before it fails, and make sure the network's a lot more efficient to distribute power. So we expect that to be in Kaysville's future if we do this project. David, there's a question for you talking about, it says, you mentioned that customer service would be split between the ISPs and the installers. Does the fiber fee cover everything needed for internet, or do we have to pay for an ISP separately? For instance, would we be paying for Comcast or Quest in addition to the utility? What are the vendors?
So the posted rates on the new Kaysville website are everything included. And so they're trying to give you a general overview of what your costs or your prices would be. We're really trying to make this as open as possible. And even though it's split between the fiber, the operations and maintenance, and the ISP, we've already committed to certain prices as an ISP, and we're getting the other ISPs are lining up to do the same. And so, yes, there are kind of different facets to it, but the pricing you're seeing right now is all inclusive. That answer the question? Yeah,
so essentially you'll have two bills. The fiber fee will be on your Kaysville utility bill, and the internet service will be separately billed by your ISP that you select. Right now, Connext is our first ISP, and as David indicated, we are talking with other ISPs now that we have our vendors chosen to begin getting them to commit to join the network. We have many that are interested and talking to us, and as soon as we have their commitment, we will be disclosing that on the website so that everybody can understand who their choices will be once this passes at the ballot. Let's see, we've got another one here. For some areas of the city have very limited internet service providers. Others areas already have fiber or multiple providers. Will the limited areas have priority and get Kaysville fiber first? Michelle, you want to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And that is precisely why we have the wait list signed up, because we want to identify those areas that are really in need of this service. And so to that resident, I would say, go get your friends or your neighbors in your area, have them come sign up and indicate they are ready for Kaysville fiber. We want to get to you first if this vote passes, because we see how much you need it, and it also benefits the project, getting a lot of subscribers and a lot of cash flow coming in right at the very beginning. So it will be coming to areas of highest priority. joining on the wait list. So yes, talk to your neighbors, get out there. If you have questions about that, you can always contact us. There's a contact on the newkaysvillefiber.com. You can contact us that way. We're able to answer questions. I know a lot of neighbors or people might, if they're not here tonight, they might have some more questions for us, and we're happy to help with that. Great question though. Okay, I'm not sure which ones have been answered.
I've been moving them off if they've been answered.
All right, Andre, do you want to talk about the new pricing piece that we put in for the lowest pricing plan?
Sure. So as we've worked with Connects, we've actually offered the 25 megabit download and 3 megabit upload speeds as a general plan available to residents that want a low cost option. It'll be $39.95 for that service, all inclusive. And so if you don't have a high bandwidth need and you just want to be able to surf and do emails, then that's a great plan for you. And it should be very competitive with other options available to people that currently don't have fiber.
That was actually, we sent out a lot of you might have seen the mailer that went out a couple weeks ago. And because we wanted people to kind of get an idea of this project, have enough time to join webinars like this. So thank you all for being willing. And a lot of the feedback that we had that came back was, you know, this lower price option that's meets their needs and also is a price point right there, that $39.95 amount. And so once again, I know it sounds like a broken record, but I'm really glad that we've built enough time into the project that we can hear from residents, we can work with our vendors, we can go back and make sure that we can customize this project the way we need to. And so I hope that answers the question about if you have a current service that does meet your needs, maybe that's what you need to realize, and you can make that choice for your household. I like to remind people that the vote in November is really not if you're voting if you want Kaysville fiber at your home or not. You're voting if you think the project should be done. And so if your needs are being met and you want it to stay, that is fine. But hopefully you've heard from enough other residents through this webinar and in talking to residents to see that it would be a really great asset to the city and to give that choice and competition to those who want it.
So we had another question that says, I currently have a service in Kaysville and they give us their price of $40 a month. I'm not sure that they've said, why would I pay $4,500 for a new internet service? So I'm not sure where they're getting that number because nobody's gonna have to pay that number. It's basically, it starts at $40, $50, $63 or $70 a month for service on Kaysville fiber. And obviously the higher prices give higher bandwidth of services, but there's not gonna be an obligation to pay $4,500 upfront or in a one-time payment to anybody. So it's that's kind of, if you want to clarify your question or concern, we'd be happy to respond to that. Let's see, are there possibilities for the fiber network to be leased out for vendor use, such as backhaul for 5G, other ISPs? This could increase revenue for the city. If you watched some of the presentations from the vendors, Corning brought that question up and asked us what other features or options we'd like to be able to provide with our network. We are certainly planning to have the capability, as Greg outlined, with microducting, that we could allow for additional fiber to be pulled through our conduits. So we don't actually have to provide the fiber. A 5G provider could use our conduits or our microducts to pull their own fiber and just pay us a fee for the use of those microducts. We also could support Wi-Fi in the parks or in the community areas. And we are certainly looking at that. And if the project moves forward and we have a good enough interest level, then we would be expecting to add that service in the future to our residents. So if you subscribe, you get free Wi-Fi in all the city areas.
Excellent question. Going back to the flexibility. This next one, it says, in conjunction with the comment above, that was from this attendee talking about being a proponent of city owning the network. It says Chattanooga, Tennessee is a great example of city municipality owning the infrastructure. And that is a great example. We've studied the these fiber-owned networks all over the country. And like I said,
there's several in Tennessee that have done this, not just Chattanooga, but there's a couple of them. And certainly one of our plans is to have our electric utility people go visit with them to understand how they've implemented smart network technology and be able to see how that could help Kaysville. So if the project moves forwards, we'll absolutely go and talk with them and learn everything we can to make sure we do it right.
Awesome. But great question. And it's a really fun thing to look at and see what the possibilities are out there. I'm going to jump down to, is this webinar, you'll be addressing how the fiber is run from the utility box in the ground to the house and the house to the router? Oh, excellent question. Who wants to answer that one?
I'd say let David take that one and the one before it.
Okay.
So yeah, we've shown just a couple of those little pictures about how we get to the home. A typical drop installation comes to what we usually call a NID, or a network interface device. So a small box, very similar to what you'd see with CenturyLink or Comcast on the side of the home, where we bring the fiber up to the home. From that point, typically with a fiber installation, we'll just come through that same wall and install the fiber modem inside the home. And if you want a much more advanced run, or to get to a more centralized location in your home, then that would probably be a different charge. But from a drop perspective, we can get it to your home and in your home as part of the infrastructure build.
Awesome.
And then the one above says, you said the charges will be all inclusive, but then said there would be 2 bills. Can you clarify which is it? So there are 2 bills. I'm just saying the price listed on the Kaysville City webpage includes both of those bills. So when I said all inclusive, it's both those bills. That is the price you'll be paying, both for the fiber infrastructure and for the operations, maintenance, and ISP.
And maybe just to make that really clear for everybody, if you go out there, I know a lot of people that have signed up for the wait list have signed up for the gigabit service, and that is $69.95 in total. $25 will show up on the Kaysville utility bill, and $44.95 will be billed from the ISP. So the total is still $69.95. It's just done in 2 separate bills and components.
And listing the pricing on there, we were trying to avoid confusion, because I know that wanted to make sure everybody realize that's exactly what you will be paying. If you have other questions on that, let us know. Thank you. This next one I'll take. It's a really great question. You mentioned how many subscribers were needed to break even. How many possible subscribers are there in Kaysville? And what does the polling suggest a likely number of subscribers? I'm actually going to let Councilmember Lortz take this one. I'm going to grab the actual page on the website to show as well.
Okay. So basically the break even is based on our survey that we did last October, when we had the different plan and asked people whether they wanted to opt in or whether they wanted to opt out of the project. And we had almost 3,000 homes that said they wanted to opt into the project. And we had about a 57% of Kaysville respond to that survey. So we thought that if you extrapolate that, that would mean that we'd have about 5,500 homes in Kaysville that would be interested in fiber to their home. And so you'll see the analysis of what we do with the subscriber scenarios. It kind of says our expected case is about 5,500 subscribers, but the self-sustaining level is between 3,500 and 4,200 subscribers based upon the final bond terms that we have.
Excellent. And we've actually, this is one of the main things we had heard from residents before. They wanted to know exactly what it was going to take, what we anticipated. And so you can see we've even gone to the case. You can see we have a real financial mind on the team. So we have the bond parameters, which Councilmember Lortz talked about, that we're approving at this next council meeting. But we also have the current market rates, so that you're able to compare the two. And just so you can see that. And then we also have below, you can see basically exactly what Councilmember Lortz just said. We've spelled that out. And I know it's a lot to take in, but this is also our commitment to be very transparent and make sure everything we know we're putting out there for residents to see as well. So this is on the website.
And the other piece of that is right now we have 9,500 premise connections in Kaysville. But as you heard earlier, somebody talking about 80 homes being built east of Highway 89. We've probably got over 200 premises permitted or approved by the city council to be built in Kaysville right now that have not yet been built. And so we expect that in the next 5 to 7 years, we'll have 11,000 premises within Kaysville. And so all of our planning is to be able to account for and accommodate the growth that will happen in Kaysville in coming years. And so part of that project for the 20 million isn't just to serve 4,500 homes, it's to serve 11,000 homes in Kaysville. Now, if we only get half of them or 5,500 to subscribe, we still pay the bond off in about 20 to 22 years. And people get to have a great internet service. And after that, their prices will drop by $22 a month in the future once the bond is paid off.
David, do you want to answer a question about pricing?
Yep, and the question was, I've heard the pricing will not go up if the city's portion is fixed, has Connects committed to never raise the monthly ISP cost. But that's kind of one of the nice things about having an open network is we're not the only ISP that's going to be servicing everyone. So competition typically keeps the pricing down. Even from an operations and maintenance standpoint, we have a specific term that we will be doing the operations and maintenance for Kaysville City. And if we don't live up to what we're supposed to do with customer service, they can choose another group to do operations and maintenance. And so from that perspective, the price really should not go up. We've committed to Kaysville City for some of those basic rates, the lower price plans as part of the operations and maintenance group. In roughly, I think, 5 years, we wouldn't have the operations and maintenance contract. Potentially, and Kaysville could renegotiate with someone to keep those prices or even make it go lower. But one of the nice things about Kaysville City owning the plant is that we're kind of in the role almost that Utopia is in with the Utopia system. But because Kaysville will own the plant and the bond will eventually be paid off, Kaysville has the ability to actually make the price go down even more instead of up over time.
Thanks, David. One other question on here. With Utopia Fiber, a resident has the option to pay a one-time payment of about $3,000 to pay off the infrastructure portion. Is there a similar option? And the answer to that is yes. Will actually be a little bit less than that. There will be the option for households to pay $2,700 upfront, and that will pay off your infrastructure part of the portion of the payment, and that is available. One of the reasons we didn't put on the postcard or other places is we wanted to make sure everyone realized it's optional. There's no upfront payment required. I realized $2,700 is a lot of money, and we didn't want anyone to think they had to come up with that money. Councilmember Lortz at our last council meeting actually broke down the return on your investment you can expect if you pay that money up front. And I have laughed and kind of maybe even rolled my eyes a little bit because I thought I would never do that, but it's fantastic. He broke it down both if the bond is paid off in 30 years versus 20 years, I think.
15.
And then, was it 20? I simplified it down and said, in my terms, obviously I would look at that, make sure it's a good investment, but I also see that it's a way of paying that up front and keeping that much more money in my household's budget every month. So you can go from the financial analyst or the practical side, either way, but we want to make sure everyone knows that is not required at all. It's just if you would like to. So excellent question. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, thank you everybody. For
Michelle, do you want to flip over to the rate page?
Yep.
Just so we can, I mean, we talked about it, but just to make sure that people are looking at that they understand exactly the numbers. And so you'll see that the residential costs that start at $39.95 and go up to $239.95 for somebody who wants the astronomical 10 gigabit symmetrical service. But if you go down below that, Michelle, to the bottom, this addresses what you were talking about. That there it says that if you pay the $2,700 up front, this is be the ISP charge that you will have for service going forward. And that the fiber fee essentially drops to $3 a month for administrative support.
And one question I wanted to bring up, David maybe will answer that, and this is hitting home to me, particularly this month in my household, but do you want to talk about data caps and data limits?
So we haven't historically had a data cap on our networks, and that's kind of one of the things that we've been pushing for with the Kaysville City network is we don't want to have data caps. And I know a lot of some of the other open infrastructure groups will have a 3 or 4 terabyte data cap. Because the city is going to actually be owning the infrastructure and helping maintain those higher rates on the infrastructure, it's really up to the ISPs whether they put a data cap in there or not. But from the fiber that we've built and even from our wireless clients, we've had a lot of clients use 10, 15, even 20 terabytes in a month. And we feel that that's sustainable now with the city taking care of the infrastructure. So we are not planning to have data caps. I would guess that a lot of the other companies, the other ISPs that join the network will also not worry nearly as much about the data caps because they're not charged for the usage across the Kaysville network the same as some of the other open infrastructure groups are charged.
Excellent, thank you.
Let me take these next two, Michelle. So the first one was kind of clarifying that $4,500 thing. Essentially, the bond with the interest is going to be, if you take the $25 fiber fee per month times 4,200 subscribers, that pays off the bond in the 30-year time frame. The interest is going to be about $12 million over 30 years. If we pay it off early, obviously the interest goes down. And that is our goal, is to actually have more subscribers than we need, pay the bond off faster, and then everybody gets lower rates sooner. Now with the $2,700 upfront payment, you basically get $22 off the fiber fee for the $2,700. So it works out to between a 5 and 9% interest rate, if you will, by loaning the money to the city rather than having an investor loan the money to the city. And that's Michelle says I geek out with my economics and finance stuff.
Totally.
But so it's not a straight $25 doesn't come off your bill, it's 22.
But you just never pay. Once again, optional benefit that you can use there. And when if the bond or if the vote is approved in November, you'll have the opportunity to go in and sign up for service, and that's when you'll make the decision. It's when it's coming to your neighborhood, ready to install. That's when you could decide this is the plan I want, and do I want to pay that $2,700?
And that's the benefit of the wait list, is because people that are on the wait list, as soon as the bond or the vote is approved, then we will be notifying people that they can now go out and subscribe for service, which then is when you'll sign your agreements with the ISP and with Kaysville City, and you will be put in the queue to have your home connected to the network. And those that are signed up sooner will get connected sooner, because obviously we know where they are. If people don't sign up, we don't know they're interested. They may get put to the bottom of the list and have to wait until everybody else that has signed up first gets connected before they do. So it is kind of almost a first come, first served kind of a wait list. And so that's why I encourage everybody to sign up sooner than later, because then we can communicate with you as things move along in the process, and you don't have to worry about, am I going to miss it? Did they not tell me? We'll keep you informed in every step along the way.
And do we want to talk about, I know we're going to be having more discussion on the 2021 timeline. Do we want to, either Greg or David, talk about the actual build out, how long we're anticipating that to take?
So sure, I'll take that one, because I think the initial build out from like the Corning perspective is going to be a bulk of the work that the residents would see, and then David's work would largely be, ongoing, and I don't want to say invisible, but it's not going to be very disruptive. We assuming the vote goes, to move forward with this, we would be planning in kind of November, December timeframe. We'd probably get some folks on the ground to do what we call survey at the first part of the year. And between kind of January and the end of February, we would be doing survey work and design work, which really just means getting all of the very, very fine details on what material needs to get put on which streets and getting it loaded up to Chad, right? Chad is our partner in this, is from a logistics and warehousing standpoint, so that when the crews are ready to go build, and if the Main Street was the priority to go build, or whichever street it might be, right, they're going to go pick the stuff up and go. So then from about end of February, early March through probably September, we would like to be building, with then kind of September through November, December for the splicing, testing, and everything. And so everything will be kind of on a rolling time frame, with some of the first homes being provided service in the maybe June time frame, and then continued homes being offered service through September, October into November. Our goal is to do this in 12 months, knowing that there's always a chance for different delays, weather delays, and other types of delays. So don't hold us to 12 months, but we've committed to 12 to 18 months, and so we're building a plan around 12 months. And so I don't know, Michelle, if that helps answer that.
It does.
Well, I think the other thing, David can probably add a little clarity on the home connections, because you don't have to wait until the plant is done before they can actually start putting in connections to homes, or at least getting prepped for that.
Yeah, there's a lot that we can do and focus on those wait lists again that you guys keep bringing up. Is if we know an area is going to be ready, and if we know where the vaults are going to be going, we can actually work in tandem with the ground crews that are coming out and putting it in. We can actually start building from your home to where that vault is or is supposed to be. By nature, our work takes a little bit longer because we don't typically just get it to the home. We get it into the home. We coordinate a lot more with you, the residents, to be able to make that happen and make sure it's how you want it and where you want it. We're working outside of the easement to come up to your home. So we have to coordinate with you to make sure that happens. So,
Michelle, it looks like we're right about at the end of our hour for this already.
Well timed on that. One thing I was going to say is there will be a new page added to the new Kaysville Fiber site on Get Informed, all about construction, so that you can see all those pictures that we had, as well as the videos that we didn't get to. So I'm going to link all of those so that you can go and see the construction process. Those that maybe weren't able to join tonight can go in and look at that. And just to get an idea, especially if you have neighbors having questions about it, that'll give you a lot of good context on there.
We just had one more question jump in. We'll try to get this maybe for Greg and Kara. I assume the life cycle of actual fiber is longer than 30 years. How often will, and then the second part of it is, how often will electronics, routers, switches expect to last, which would probably be Chad and David to answer that. And then I'll take the last piece first, is if the city paid $25 per month is the bond payment, the $44.95 is paying the ISP, who's paying for the electronic system maintenance and upgrade costs, assuming they don't last 30 years? It's a great question. So within that $44.95 that the ISP collects, they actually have to pay a port fee to Kaysville for each port that they use on the network. And that's the operations and maintenance that David was referencing. So the ISP is actually taking from the money they collect and paying the city for use of the network. And that pays for what David's team does in customer support, but it also provides the money that we can replace the electronics on a regular basis. And I'll let them talk about how often that needs to happen, and Corning talk about how long fiber lasts.
Yeah, David, do you want to talk about electronics quickly?
yeah, I can dive into that one first. So the electronics, typically we see about a 10-year, we plan for about a 10-year life cycle on the electronics. We have electronics that have been out in the field for 20 years, but we like to plan for about 10 years. And so as Andre mentioned, a portion of that money comes into operations and maintenance, and that is actually stored in a bank account or savings account or what have you. And that goes both towards replacing equipment that fails, as well as the potential in the future for upgrading some equipment as technologies progress. If 10 gig becomes the new norm and the price hits the right point, you may get your 1 gig line replaced with 10 gig line equipment, all wrapped into the operations and maintenance costs. And that, that again, maybe 10 years down the road, but Kaysville City's done a very good job of accounting for that need.
Thanks, David. And for the fiber and the fiber hardware, right? So anywhere there's glass, that's actually the stuff that does not need to be upgraded, and it's going to last the longest. There are fiber cables that are in the ground that were placed in the 80s as part of, long distance telephone routes that are still in use today. Fiber doesn't degrade over time. It doesn't, require, upgrade due to bandwidth or new technologies. It's literally just glass carrying the light signal. And so, in theory, it's infinitely future-proofed.
Great, thank you. Another one, David, really quickly is, with the city owning the infrastructure, are all ISPs treated equally? And assuming the answer is of course, but this has to do with net neutrality. Will we be differentiating services on the network based on what service they're using or what ISP they're using or any other mechanism?
So yeah, net neutrality is a big topic, and the way we're structuring everything, yes, we're going to be net neutral. We're not going to be rate limiting or limiting certain items to certain people or any of those kinds of things. And I'm guessing are all ISPs treated equally question probably comes up because we're looking at being both the operations and maintenance as well as being one of the ISPs on the network. And a lot of our role as an ISP isn't necessarily to compete so much with the other ISPs that's on there. It's more to make sure we can provide those base services that we've already agreed to with Kaysville City. And so we're not going to have, as an ISP, we're not going to have any unfair advantage over the other ISPs on pricing, on what we pay, or any of that kind of stuff. So yes, the plan is to have all ISPs treated equally.
And I think the other thing that people should know is, as we've worked with David and Chad, we're actually trying to use some of the most modern auto provisioning software to manage the network. So it actually doesn't take any live people to provision a service or change a service. People will be able to go onto the website and say, I want to upgrade from 250 megabits to 1 gig. And usually within 5 minutes, your service is upgraded and you're done, and nobody had to do anything but you go out and agree to the new terms and conditions, and the service is changed. And so that's all automatic. It manages and watches how things are working and notifies the operations team if there's a problem with a port or with a connection. And we don't actually have to go out and find it. We can see that we lost connectivity to a home.
Even to the point where in the future, there are several ISPs, one does phone, one does television, one does internet, and you decide that you want a different package, phone, television, and internet from each of those ISPs, the portal system that we're planning to use makes that possible. So very, very flexible in giving you the choices that you may want.
And just to wrap that up, I think that is the technology part, but that is a great piece as we go out and we're talking to our friends and our neighbors. The ability to customize our plans and our services to meet our needs, our household needs, is going to be fantastic. Have it instantly available. And like we've said lots of times before, choice and competition. Hopefully we can share that benefit with everyone and catch the vision. I see that very last question. Are you okay if I answer that really quick?
Yeah.
I know we're talking a lot about residential use, but I would like to hear the benefits of business applications as well. I work in tech sales, and bandwidth is a crucial piece of all new tech. Oh, such a good question. I'll answer it really quickly. I'm sure there's lots more to say. The reason we're focusing or spending so much on residential is because residents are who are voting for this project. And it's the city's own network. We want that to be very upfront. Residents are the biggest part of Kaysville, so that's who's going to be paying for this majority wise. But this network will be a huge benefit to businesses. When we talked about Tennessee examples, or even closer up here in Idaho, lots of them, having this fiber network available to businesses who have high bandwidth needs or have unique needs, unique tech needs, is a huge benefit. And we have already businesses that are here in Kaysville saying, yes, please bring this. We would love it. And I love going and touring the businesses in Kaysville. I don't think most people even know the cool businesses we have in the business park. And also we have some amazing home businesses run right in people's homes, and we'll have business level services available in your home if you need it. So we're not avoiding the business piece section. We are just focusing on residential because it is the vast majority of who will be on this network and paying for it. And it's also who will be voting in November. But
and I think, Michelle, another thing just for the business services and probably for the residents as well, the question is going to come up as well, how reliable is Kaysville fiber going to be? Because heck, we're just a small little town. And I think that it'd be really good to let everybody know that with David's help and Chad's help, we have been planning for redundancy connections north and south of Kaysville, going to Salt Lake and to Ogden data centers. So we will not just have one port or one path to the internet for Kaysville residents. We will be able to have multiple paths for it. So if one line gets cut, we have the other line that can work. And the same thing within the city, we've got that fiber ring, which allows us that if a main line gets cut somewhere in the city, we can go around the other side of the ring to keep that connectivity up and running. They've also planned for battery backup and generators on all the huts, so that even if we lose electric service in Kaysville, the fiber network will stay lit and still operate.
Awesome. So much to say. Obviously, we love talking about this. We love, especially when we have questions come up. I have had lots of residents asking questions. They've seen the council meeting or they've come to a webinar and they follow up and sending us an email. You can email the Kaysville Fiber team at fiber@kaysvillecity.com. You can also come to our contact page on the website and we will do our best to get back to you. I showed the timeline really quickly on there. And also just wanted to put a huge thank you to everyone who's been part of this process. The awesome vendors that we have here taking their time, city staff that's worked really hard. We have our citizens panel that I talked about, technical advisory committee of residents that have spent lots and lots of hours making this the right project for our city. So thank you so much to them, and let us know how we can help. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. This video will be posted to the website on the Get Informed page, so you can send it to your friends. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.